Alright, hello internet. I haven't done one of these in years, but hey, I'm gonna try YouTube! So, I am currently working on a Vanny costume for Fan Expo Canada this August, and I wanted to do like a little bit of my own spin on it, so I'm sort of doing like a maskless Vanny, but I also didn't want to have to worry about the big paw hands that she has, so I decided I'd do my own thing, and I'm making fingerless gloves. Now, before you come at me, I know bunnies don't technically have little paw beans. I thought it was funny. And I figured I might as well take you guys along the way, sort of give you guys a little bit of an insight of what my sewing process is like, as well as give you a tutorial on how to make your own fun little fingerless gloves. I'm actually gonna go grab the gloves. You know what? The fact that I'm not wearing the gloves right now is kind of criminal. Alright, I am back. These are what they look like pre-weathering. You can see that they are totally cute and fun. They are made of fleece. They are completely lined on the inside as well. And they are so comfortable. Oh my god. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to show you how I made these little guys. So let's go. So to start off, for materials for this, I had white thread, pink felt, and the scraps left over of fleece from making my Vanny bodysuit. And so I only used about not even half a meter of fleece. You don't have to use fleece. You can use any sort of material you want. I would recommend the material with just a little bit of stretch. Ultimately, it's up to you. If you're not using stretch, maybe make it a little bit bigger. Maybe make it like a 22 by 22. Also, unless otherwise specified, I am using stretch stitches specifically made on my machine, or you can also use a zigzag stitch if your machine has that. Alright, so the first thing I did was I cut two 20 centimeter by 20 centimeter squares. You're gonna need 2 for each glove, so technically 4 in total. And then I placed 2 of the squares right sides together, facing each other, and I sewed down one of the edges. With fleece, it's kind of hard to press the seams open because you have a chance of melting the fleece itself. So if you're gonna do that, use a press cloth or don't press it all. If you're using different fabric, try your iron on it first on like a scrap piece of fabric to see how the iron reacts to it, see how different heat affects it. Just don't do this on your final project without testing, please. Once those guys are sewn together, before you do anything else, now is the time to detail. So what I did was I did heat and bond applique. So the first thing I did was I took my heat and bond, I placed it on the wrong side of the fabric with the sticky side of the heat and bond down, and then I ironed it onto my felt. Once it was ironed on, I took the little pattern pieces I made for the beans and I traced them onto the felt. I then cut them out of the felt and peeled off the paper backing. If your heat and bond isn't fully ironed on, you're gonna have a hard time peeling off the paper backing. So just keep ironing until it comes off really easily. Next up, I placed those with the shiny side of the fabric that I just added the heat and bond onto down, and I ironed it on top of the fleece. Use a press cloth on your fleece. You don't want your fleece to melt. You don't want your felt to melt. Once both of those were pressed down and I was happy with how much they stuck, I took them over to my machine and I used this little blanket detail stitch. I really like how it looks for sewing on applique like this. I think it gives a cool like handmade kind of effect, while also still looking very like professional to say. I like how clean it looks. And yeah, if you're doing any sort of applique, any sort of decals, anything on your... Oh, wait, we have a little friend.
Oh, little baby man. Yes, little baby man. Oh, hello.
Oh, wait, can you hear that? Once you're done any detailing, or if you're not doing any detailing, the next step is you want to fold it in half, hot dog style. I'm going to give you some dimensions that you're going to mark. I'm also going to put them up on screen because it can be a little bit complicated. You're going to mark from the center line 4 centimeters out to the left. You're going to leave a 4 centimeter gap, and then you're going to leave the rest of it. On the other side, you're going to do the same. That's 4 centimeter gap, the rest of it. And then when you take it to your machine, you're going to sew that big piece that we didn't exactly measure. Leave that 4 centimeter gap open, sew across the 2 other 4 centimeters, leave that gap open, and sew the rest. This kind of makes it so that you have 2 thumb holes, one for the outer and one for the inner. Alright, so I will admit this is where it gets kind of tricky, so bear with me here. What you're gonna do is you're going to try and press your seam down the middle if you can. If not, that's cool. Just sort of use your fingers and hold it, and then you're gonna fold it in half. Once you've got it folded in half, you wanna make sure that seam allowance is still pressed flat, and you're going to take both of the outer seam allowances and pin them together, making sure you're not touching any of the inner seam allowance. I know that sounds weird and tricky. It sort of is, but once you get the hang of it on your first glove, your second glove's gonna come so easy. So once you have all of those pinned together, what you're gonna wanna do is you can either machine stitch or hand stitch. I chose to hand stitch for this, and you're just gonna sew those two pieces of seam allowance together. I just used a really easy running stitch. It doesn't need to be super tight. It doesn't need to be super clean. This is going to be on the inside of your gloves when they're done. Just enough that you stick them together. Once you've got your hand sewing on that side done, you're gonna essentially turn your glove around the other direction, and with the remaining two pieces of seam allowance, you're going to do the same thing. Push them together and then sew them together, either by hand or by machine. Once you do that, you can take your glove and turn it right sides out. Once your glove is right sides out, you can kind of see that when we sewed together the seam allowance, that made it so that we had no raw edges around the hole of the thumb, just like that. Around the bottom raw edge of your glove, you can now close it up. Once again, you can either machine stitch this or hand stitch this. I chose to do a hand stitch. I did like a ladder stitch so that you can't really see any of the stitches on the outside. And with that, you've just got to repeat it one more time and you've got two wonderful, reversible, comfy as hell fingerless gloves. And yeah, this was my first attempt at doing proper YouTube videos. I know I make tutorials for a living, but it's always super weird to commentate them live. So if you liked this and you want to see more from me, let me know. This is the chance where I plug myself. You can find me at Cospayton on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Thread. And you can find me at cospayton.com, where I sell a bunch of patterns, 3D kits, custom fabric, blueprints, resources, anything you could need as a cosplayer, essentially. I make it. If you have any other ideas for YouTube videos as well, since I'm still getting the hang of this, comment them below, leave a like, subscribe if you liked it, and I'll see ya later. God, I'm such a goober.